From retail arbitrage, going to places like Toys R Us, Walmart, Target, flipping retail items on Amazon, to then taking the Wholesale Formula course, Jonathan David in this interview went from $0 to $1 million in sales with his wholesale business. This is a really exciting story that I'm going to share with you today. I really relate to Jonathan's story because he did exactly what I've been doing for years, and I'm assuming a lot of you guys are going to retail stores, Goodwills, thrift stores, auctions, places like that. John, he was in the same position, and he took Dan and Dylan's Wholesale Formula course, and he absolutely changed his life. You're going to love this interview. We share a whole bunch of ups and downs, wins and losses. There's certain moments in this video where I'm thinking to myself, wow, I might have just given up. But he persisted. He kept going forward, and it just goes to prove when you put your mind to something and you choose one thing and you commit from the bottom of your heart, the opportunities are endless. If you're ready to rock and roll, let's dive into this video and learn about how Jonathan David went from retail arbitrage to $1 million in sales with wholesale after taking the Wholesale Formula program. With that being said, cue the intro.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Steve here, Raiken Profit, coming back to you with another video. And today we are talking with Jonathan David, who is actually a student of the Wholesale Formula. He actually built a wholesale business, been doing it for quite a few years, has sold over 8 figures. And in his first year, he ended up selling $1 million wholesale in his business. So Jonathan is here. He's going to talk about his story, give you guys a bunch of tips and tricks, discussing how he actually transitioned from hustling and flipping items to now doing wholesale, has a lot of big goals and everything, and just a great guy. So I want to introduce Jonathan. How are you doing?
Good, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you being here, man. And very curious about your story because we were talking off the air for a couple of minutes about, my audience and my journey. And, I do a lot of thrifting, eBay, Amazon and stuff. And you really related to that. And you were smiling a couple of times because you were like, I remember I was there and I felt the same pain points that we feel at times, always having to go out and find new items and bring it back and working 50, 60 hours a week. And our income's just kind of stuck. We want to grow, we want to build, but we're just having a hard time. So do you mind sharing a little bit about your story?
Yeah. I guess I'll say my story started. Well, I started selling on Amazon in 2012, selling textbooks. That's when, you know, um, right now it's kind of tough to sell textbook, but that's how I got started. But before that, I was and during that time, I was a sales rep at T-Mobile.
Mm.
So a lot of people don't really talk much about what they did before the online game, but I've been doing a lot of reflecting recently, and I realized that it played a big part in everything. So I was in a commission. What that is, sales rep is just a commission-based job. So you live off the hustle. You kill, you eat what you kill, and that's basically it. Like I was bred that way, and that's kind of why I fell in love with Amazon, because it was just like commissions, and then our payout and our profits. And when you hustle and you sell stuff, it's profits, it's commission. But as soon as the month is over or the payout's over, like if you stop, you don't eat. Like that's just how it works. So, but anyway, so I got into textbooks when I realized that, actually before that, also I studied finance. So I was always doing, was trying to outsmart, the stock market. I was always wanted to know, like, how can I just put in, a little bit of money or some money and just not have to work again. Like that was when I was 17, 16, 18, like that is what I thought my life would be. Like I'll get some money somehow. Like I'll work at McDonald's, I'll get some money. Because I knew I wasn't a good student. I wasn't somebody that would just be in a suit and tie and be a lawyer. I just knew I
Mm.
couldn't be that person. So I was like, look, how do I just get $10,000 and then every year save $10,000? I live at home. I live at home with my in the basement for like 10 years at my parents' house. I'll save $10,000 a year working at McDonald's, but I'll put it into stocks, and I'll invest in stocks, and I'll become rich. So basically, I did that, and I studied finance. Went to school for finance. I did a lot of research on stocks, and then I realized that, hey, like it's not possible to it's not possible. You know, I put the money in. I had actually a lot of early success, but that early success got me cocky, and then I put more money in, and
Mm.
then I ended up losing everything. And I'm like, I lost so much money. I was at the point where I was like, man, I'm never gonna do this again. Like I have to figure out how to really like follow what my parents said. Go to school, work hard, get a good job, make 40, $50,000 a year, work your way up, and you know that's what you're gonna
Mm.
do. So I was like, all right, well that makes sense because I tried my way, and like you know, the laziness, the lazy mentality I had of just get rich quick, that didn't work out. So basically, I told myself, man, like I lost so much money though. I was like, if I ever, like, the only time I'll ever invest in the stock market again is if I could predict what it's gonna do. Like the moment I could predict what it's gonna do is the moment I will start investing because, but I knew I could never predict. Like I knew that that didn't exist. So it was really a way of me telling myself, never gamble, never do something that was gambling. So I would classify myself as a gambling addict, but that's for another story. But really, so I ended up when I was in college, I just had my textbooks laying around, and I decided to just look up one of the textbooks on Amazon, and I saw it was selling for about like $10, let's say, and I bought the book for 50. I was like, cool, and I didn't end up selling it. And then since my dad paid for my books, he was like, you know, I was not even doing good in school. He was like, hey, why don't you go sell the books again? Why don't you sell the books? Why like give me some money back? Like just give me some money back for the books
Right.
I bought, like at least because you're not doing good in school. I was like, oh shoot, all right. So I go look it up, and I look it up online, and I'm like, the book is $58. I'm like, how is the book $58 if I bought it for $50 and last month or 2 months ago it was $10? Like that doesn't make sense. And I started thinking about it and thinking about it, and I looked it up, and then it hit me that all the stuff I was learning in school hit me that, you know, supply and demand and all these things. And I'm like, okay,
Wow.
so you're telling me that what causes the price? Oh, wait, maybe more kids want the books now and they don't want them when I was trying to sell them, like, because when the semester starts,
Right.
duh. And then I was like, if that's true, that's crazy. And then I started stumbling on Camel is a software like Keepa
Yep.
nowadays. It's back in the day. And I looked at it and I saw the graphs. And when I saw the graphs, that the price of a old edition textbook was, you know, $10 or $8 last year or 6 months ago, and then every semester it goes up $60. I'm like, that's insane. So you're telling me I could predict the future? Like you're telling me I could do
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
So the moment that happened, I completely took all my saving at the time. I had, you know, $10,000 saved up from, you know, trying to work, you know, work hard, doing what I was doing, and I just started buying everybody's books. I went to all my friends and family's house and emptied their bookshelf. I bought all my kids and friends in school, all the classes books, try to resell them, and that's kind of how I got into Amazon. Um, and then after that, I was like, man, like I'm gonna have to stay in college forever because I'm not gonna know when I'm gonna run out of books. Like I need to stay in college to buy books. Like that was the joke that I made to myself and my friends. But then so then I was like, okay, like what, like I'm not gonna always have some books. Like what do I do now? And then I saw Rob Anderson. I don't know if anybody knows Rob Anderson. He was
Dollar
one of them.
moves.
That
Man,
was
I
one of
love Rob Anderson.
Rob
He
Anderson.
is the man.
Rob Anderson, giving you a shout out, but he's the OG. Like when I saw, at the time, I kind of didn't even want to even look on Amazon, look online to see if there's any guides because I was too scared to see that other people were like doing what I was doing. I wanted to keep it a secret. And then, but I peeked online and I saw Dollar Moves was just started, was I think recently starting up, and he was talking about Q4 is crazy. And I'm like, what does Q4 being crazy have to do with anything? Like I'm selling textbooks. But then he talked, but I was like, wait, so maybe toys has the same effect. So then I found myself in Toys R Us all the time, and just getting, you know, toys. And I saw that they're old toys that sell for a lot. So I was absolutely like they were like back in the day in Toys R Us when no one knew about retail arbitrage. Like there was like dusty Legos on top of the overstock on top of the shelves all the time that nobody knew about. I was getting ladders and climbing on the ladders like an employee, like getting all this stuff. And they've been up there for 6 or 7 years, so
Oh,
there's so much dust on them. And then when you scan them, since they've been around for so long, they're $2 because that's their markdown price. but they sell for $400 and
Oh my
$300.
God.
So I was like, it was like finding gold, but 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 so I was on the emotional high from that. I was like, wow, this is the best. So all I did was I should have gone harder. Like I was in school, but I did it 1 day a week, and I was, my first year doing that, I did about 600,000. All my retail
Jeez,
arbitrage business was from one store, Toys R Us. I didn't diversify in stores. Like
that's crazy.
I memorized the aisles, the markdown schedules, the employees, the computer system. Like I didn't go to Target, I didn't go to Walmart. I didn't have many of them either, but I just focused on Toys R Us and just completely, did arbitrage like crazy. And looking back, I wish I just had dropped out of school and did everything, because all I did, I spent 1 day sourcing, but I would come home with a complete van full of toys that would take me the whole rest of the week to prep and ship it out and get it ready and get it sold.
It's
So
crazy.
so that's what I used to do. But that was fun. That was exciting when it happened, and I did that for about 2 years, doing retail arbitrage. And then I was like, man, I got to make things easier, because remember, I'm a lazy guy at heart. So I'm like, hey, like I gotta like get this a little easier. And then OA started to be a thing. I'm like, I didn't think that would be possible. I don't think it'd be possible that you could just order something from the internet and then sell it on the internet. Like, doesn't make sense. But then it made sense, and then I did it. And then prep centers came out at the same time, so I was able to just do a lot of, work like that with arbitrage.
That's
And
awesome.
so basically that was kind of like, uh, arbitrage for me. But then that was after doing that for a while, there was just so many stores just saying, hey, we can't we can't sell to you. You're a reseller. You bought too much. Quantity flags. I'm like, okay, everybody's doing this now. Like that is why it's happening. Like I know I'm not the only one. Like maybe I'm the one that
Right, right.
broke them. Maybe, but but there's things we did with, to try to like have multiple browsers and all that stuff back in the day. But like in different IPs and emails and whatever. Long story, we did a lot to try to get our orders in. But I just realized, I'm like, man, like I'm 23 years old. Like I'm not going to be doing this for the next 20 years. So like, what can I do? Like, I need to stop. Like, this is not going to keep happening. Like
Right.
a lot of people who are doing arbitrage right now, like I feel bad, that they're making this decision to completely just say, no, arbitrage is all I'm going to do, because what it is a great hustle. It's an amazing hustle. But if you view it as, this is going to be my career forever, like that could be difficult, because it's just view it as a hustle. And I saw you, Steve, even had a video about you're buying a house. Like, take all that hustle money and put it somewhere like that. Like, it's just like it's like being in the NBA or NFL. NFL stands for not NFL athletes, NBA athletes. They get a bunch of money all at once, and it's no different from that, probably to a
Mm.
smaller scale, because it's like you really don't. Sad to say, and I'm talking to myself too. Like 23-year-old Jonathan, like 22-year-old, you didn't have the skills to really earn that amount of money that you were earning. Like the amount of money you were earning, $500 an hour doing arbitrage, $1,000 an hour. Like you think you're the man, right? But you're not, because you don't have professional skills to actually take that money and do something with it. So you should
Mm.
you should just always be like, hey, this is not going to happen for the next 20 years. This might happen for the next 5 years. So for 5 years, I'm going to make as much money as I can and take that money,
Mm.
invest it somewhere else that has nothing to do with Amazon, nothing to do with eBay. And that way, like when things do change, whether they disappear or change to a level where it's a lot harder, you're not wondering where your next meal is going to come from. That's
And
always
things
how.
are changing like crazy right now, man. Like, sorry to interrupt you, but the retail
Yeah,
arbitrage game is like
yeah.
completely changing with all these restrictions and everything with Amazon, like dramatically over the last year.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And like I kind of you see, I never got into the restrictions game where I was getting in trouble from restrictions. If anything, like I felt early on that the writing was on the wall. In about 2015 is when I pivoted into wholesale, when it was like, hey, like you go to a store and they say, no, you can't buy five, you can't buy 50, you can only buy three.
Right.
I'm like, that makes no sense. It does make sense from their standpoint, but from my standpoint, I understand why they don't want us to buy all their lost leaders. That makes perfect sense. I agree with them. But from my standpoint, at the time, I was like, this makes no sense. Like, is this my business is to do this, and you're telling me no. and I can get emotional about it. But then instead, I start to think back to what I was actually learning in college. I talk a lot of smack about college on the offline, by the way. But then some of the college knowledge starts to come back, and I start to think
Yeah.
about it, and I'm like, okay, I studied finance, and in finance, there was actually the term arbitrage was used, and all arbitrage really means is in the real, in not in the real world, but the offline world, the world that existed thousands of years or before the online
Yeah.
world. Um, the word arbitrage just means riskless profit because of inefficiencies in the marketplace.
Mm.
So when you make a riskless profit because the market is inefficient, like a market being inefficient means that the price is not correct. That's what, when you hear that term, inefficient market. So
Okay.
in the stock market, there's a thing called efficient market hypothesis and inefficient. I don't want to get too technical because a lot of people fell asleep during this lesson. Um, but I was pretty um, in tune to it because I lost a lot of money doing this before, right? And I always wondered why I lost money because I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. But then when you realize that the markets, whether it's the financial markets, the stock markets, can be inefficient, that means that it's priced incorrectly, or efficient and it's priced correctly. But
Mm.
how could it be priced incorrectly? And really, when I found out, my professor was saying, well, the price of a stock can be too high when people just think it's worth more than it is, aka Bitcoin last year. Or inefficient is when it's worth less, it's worth more than people think it is. So
Mm.
it's like you could have a really good company, like in 2008, 2007, there was a good company, like call it Google. Google is a great company. They make so much money. Like just because 1 year passes or 1 day passes and it crashes and it's now worth half of what it was. That doesn't mean it's worth half what it was. Like that company is making billions of dollars the day before it crashed and the same amount of money, like almost the same the day after. So it's like this idea that it's worth less is they come up with the word the name inefficient. That would
Interesting.
mean it's inefficient. So then the reason why I bring all that up is because arbitrage is a riskless profit between that. And when I started to think about that, I remember that hit me in school because I was always thinking about how do I make money without losing anything? And it's riskless sound great to me. And I said, hey, professor, why is it that, like, why? So you can just keep doing this and make billions and billions of dollars and just keep doing, arbitrage in the financial markets? Because there's such a thing called arbitrage in the financial markets. Forgot to explain that, but there is a
Yeah.
thing called arbitrage financial market. You can make a riskless profit by buying something in like one currency and selling it in another currency at the right time, and you make like 20 cents. But if you do it on a billions and trillions of dollars, you make a lot of money, and you do it over and over again. So I was like, so you can just keep doing this a millions of times and just make billions of dollars. And my professor said, you can do it, but only for a limited amount of time because the big players are called arbitrageurs, and eventually they bring everything down to equilibrium and the markets become
Mm.
efficient. So efficient market mean inefficient is too low, efficient is too efficient market means the price is right. So
Correct. Yeah.
just like if you buy something from the store for $20 and it sells online for $20, like, or $26, adjusted for fees, like that would mean it's efficient. You wouldn't buy
Got
that
it.
thing to sell it because it's priced exactly. So it's like
Hmm.
by definition, arbitrage will always come to an equilibrium. Always. That's just the definition of what's happened before in other markets. So it's this market, it's the same concept, but people
You could
don't know
see
that.
it too. It
Yeah.
used to be so wide in
Yep.
2012, 13. It's slow. It's getting like if you look the prices, it's like everything's coming to an equilibrium. You can.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
It's
Because
crazy you explained it that way, man. It's like you're blowing my mind.
yeah, well this is all that worthless college stuff that I thought was worthless, but it actually makes sense later on, right? But it's true because whatever happens, we think we're all online, we're all spending a lot of time online. I do it myself, and we kind of get caught up in a bubble. But there's a whole world out there where things already happen. And if you look for parallels from the history and other industries, you'll see it plays out, and you can make better decisions when you kind of put yourself out a little bit and see that. But yeah, there's so many big players in the arbitrage space, like doing 100 million, 50 million, just doing arbitrage, that it makes it really hard for everyone else to do things. But you can still make money here and there, but it's harder. So that's kind of, I wasn't squeak. I could I had to I knew that it would get really hard. And for me, I have low tolerance for pain. Like I don't want things to get hard on me. I felt like things were already hard enough when I lost a lot of money early on when I was 18. I was just a young, poor little kid. So I was like, I don't want it to get hard. So I kind of was like, okay, in like 3 years is gonna get really hard. And this was about 2015. That's when I was like, okay, how do I just replenish inventory over and over again and like not go to stores because that's all I did. I used to go to stores after stores. So then I realized that I like, okay, well, can I just buy something in bulk from somewhere? So I looked into liquidations and pallets, and I was like, that looked sketchy to me because then you had to buy a whole bunch of pallets. Not sketchy, but kind of like arbitrage because it's a bunch of pallets, and then you had to like check everyone, and half of it would be bad, and the other
You
half
don't
would
know
be
what is in it.
okay. Yeah, so I was like, that to me is also a guess. I don't want to guess. I just want the most boring, guaranteed way to make money. Like, what's the most boring? Like, because I had enough. I had enough failures.
You
You
wanted
know?
the predictability. You wanted
Yeah.
that reoccurring cash flow. You wanted to know that the money was going to keep coming. You didn't want ups and downs, kind of like the arbitrage.
Yeah, and also because the predictability means you can plan things. You can plan your rent. You can plan your life. You could do so much. You can hire once you have predictability. If you don't have predictability, then it's hard. And also, I wanted to be able to work to have things going without me working. I've been working so hard, and coming from the sales background, commission background, well, like the moment you stop, you're done. So I was like, I wanted to just do something once and then it just continue going forever. Like
Got it.
that's just the lazy mentality that I have. So I started looking into wholesale in 2015. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna sign up. I'm gonna just Google wholesale, and there was like I signed up for a bunch of directories. I don't know if you know Sale Who and Worldwide Brands, but
Mhm.
those I thought the moment I signed up for that, I was like, oh, wholesale directories, you just have to pay us $69 for a year. We can go in, you can see a list of suppliers, and then just make plug and play, and you make a bunch of money. And I watched the video, their sales video, and I was like, this is amazing. And I told my wife right after that, I'm like, hey, I'm not going to the stores anymore. We're gonna make $10,000 a month from this profit easily. Like I told her, it's gonna be an easy,
It's
easy thing.
going down. I got a plan.
And the plan was I just have to talk. I knew I had to talk to, go through like, I have to have like 1,000 SKUs. If I had 1,000 SKUs that sold one thing, I make $5 on that one thing,
Yep.
like that would make it. So I was like, let's do it. So I started looking in, and I'm like, man, going through all the price lists, and I'm like, nothing's profitable, nothing. Like, I don't know, like, this is not gonna make any money. Like, this is horrible. And I was like, man, I gotta be a better way. So then I realized, like, why don't I just call the brand directly? Like, there'll be more margin, and I'll just call the brand and do it. So I started to make a big list of brands, and the moment I was doing that, I saw Wholesale Formula popped up, and I'm like, what's this? And then some guys started talking, Dan, Eric, and started talking, and I'm like, okay, like you're talking about what I'm right about to do. So I'm like, I can either I was like a little bit at the time. I was like, well, like I'm about to do this. Like I kind of was like a little prideful into the sense where I was like, I don't really need their help. Like I
Right,
don't
right.
need their help. I could do it. And like, but like let me just see what it's about. And I kind of like don't want the competition. Like, but I was like, all right, whatever. Let me just take the plunge. At the time it was like, 800, 900 or something for the course. That's when it was beta launch. So these are just some unknown guys. I'd never heard of them before. I'd never seen them in a Facebook group, and it was the most expensive decision I ever made. All my courses have been like $25 courses up to this point, and I'm like, what? Because that was all that was out there. And then I took the course. And I took the course, but really, I mean, I bought the course, but really, I took like just about 2 modules of the course because I didn't really need to know like how to do this and that. Like I already had the concept in my brain. The one thing I was missing was just like, the community. The moment I got in there, it was a community of about 150 people who were doing the same thing as me. And Dan and Dylan and Eric, they were just any stupid question I had, like a dumb question, like what is a PO? Like they're asking me for a PO. What do I do? Like things like that. Like you could Google my name, like not Google, but search my name in the group eventually. Whoever is in the group, and just see like the dumb questions I used to ask, and they would just answer me in like these answers that were like blog post answers because they just really wanted to help, and they still do that after 4 years. They still do that, and that's because they really care. And but literally just that, if all I did was answer one of my questions, it was worth the money because people don't realize that. People don't realize that it's it's like it's not hard. Like wholesale is not hard. It's just required. You call people, you call brands, and then you buy their stuff and you sell it on Amazon. Like that's really what it is. The hard part is the getting the confidence to do it. And like when you're in a situation and knowing that you have somebody else that can help you in your corner, like you don't have to know all the answers. You just need to act like you know half the answers, be confident, and then you can still get help from people in your network. And I was adding them to my network, and at the time I didn't know that was what I was doing. I thought I was buying a course, but I literally looked at two modules, like one on something and one on how to make the website, and that's all. But I know a lot of people do watch the courses, and the courses are updated all the time, and they're great. But but yeah, like I really that in 2016 was when I took that course, and I really dove in. And that same year, I moved. I was living in New York at the time, and I knew it was going to be really successful. So I moved from New York to Florida because, like, taxation and all that. But I told myself, you know, this was the first time I was moving away from my home, my family, my wife moved, and I told myself I'm not gonna have I don't have any income, so I could do RA and OA on the side and do wholesale, also. But then I knew my own capacity. Like I knew that, yeah, that sounds good in theory. Like, yeah, why stop something that's working? And I'm not telling anyone to do this,
Right, right.
but I knew, like, okay, arbitrage is not going to be around, so why do it? Just completely give it up, and just like if it takes me 2 years to figure out wholesale by splitting my focus, like I rather just not split my focus and it take me 6 months. Like I don't care what it takes. Like I'll not make money for 6 months. So during those 6 months, my wife was like saying, "You need to do OA," because I had so many good sources. Like I gave my sources away to like friends and family, and they were able to make like thousands and thousands just by doing nothing because I just giving them the sources. And so, I mean, if at that time in 2016, if you guys had messaged me if you want sources, like I probably would have given you. So, but
Bolos.
yeah, I had so many bolos back then. But anyway, so yeah, like I literally quit cold turkey, and then I went all into it. But it's still with their help. Even with their help, like it really took me like 6 or 7 months to
Oh yeah.
really like get a hang of it. But then month 7 to 9 is when I went from like 20K a month. Well, first it was zero, and then from 0 to 20K after like 7 months, which was hard. But then everything started to click. Like I perfected my pitch. I knew what to say. I had the confidence. Like that was the built up. Um, and I was really believing what was going to happen. And then from month 7 to month 9 is when I was doing 80,000, 90,000 a month. So
Wow.
it just completely just went from like literally like I could have quit, like this is horrible, like it's not worth it, to like just going straight to a 7-figure run rate pretty quickly. So that's kind of like, and after I did that, I was like, wow, this is real. I need to stop. I need to stop actually just doing wholesale in the way I'm doing wholesale, because I knew that just doing wholesale is also a form of arbitrage, because it's like you contact a brand, you buy their stuff, and then sell it. Like it's an easier arbitrage, and I call it in my group wholesale arbitrage. And a lot of people talk about that right now, and they talk about it like quit your job, do wholesale arbitrage. I mean, I wouldn't quit my job and do wholesale arbitrage. I would just keep your job and do wholesale arbitrage unless you're doing it really big. But just know that it's not permanent. And I started to think like, what's permanent? And I'm not, nothing's permanent, but like I think one of the most permanent things, even more permanent than private label, which everyone seems to call the holy grail, is that when you build real relationships with people and you're not hiding behind a computer all the time, and you build a relationship with the supplier and they're a human being, and you can shake their hands and look them in the eye and talk to them, that's a relationship. So people complain about race to the bottom. Well, if you're doing arbitrage, by definition, it's going to race to the bottom because the markets go to equilibrium. It is by definition. So I always chuckle when I see people not know that race to the bottom is the name of the game of arbitrage. But when you have a relationship, there is no race to the bottom. Because all you have to do, and there's no such thing as bad margins, because you just tell your wholesale supplier, hey, I have no margin. Can we have a map pricing? Can we start a map pricing that gives us more margin? Can you give me a better price or something? Can you pay us a little bit for advertising? Like those doors open up when you have a relationship. Like so many people do wholesale and they're like, yeah, I'm scanning price lists. I'm not finding anything. And I'm like, even during, they're doing the wholesale formula. So I'm like, well, yeah, wholesale formula has been around for 4 years. Like the days of scanning price lists are over. I used to scan price lists and that was kind of hard, but I wouldn't say it's over because it's still you could still do it, but just
It's
know.
not as easy, kind of like retail arbitrage.
Right. But again, keep in your head, if you're doing it, you can do it, but just know that what do you think is gonna happen in 3 years? Like in 3 years, like it's probably not good. Like you and 500 other people are gonna be doing it, so it's something is gonna happen, right? The brand is gonna have an exclusive seller. So it's like, okay, well, if that's the case, like you have to figure out a way to work closer with the brand. So that's why when I started our first year, I had about 40 or 50 brands that I was ordering from. And then I basically just consolidated all. I was like, look, we need to do exclusives with you guys. And it's hard to do exclusive. A lot of people say they try, and it is really hard. It's like getting married. Like you can't just, you can't just expect that to happen. Like you have to have shown some value. You have to demonstrate that you are not like everybody else. Like if you're asking to get married to this brand and this brand has 7 other suitors, yeah, if the brand has no one else, like they'll take you, but they're probably a horrible brand. Like, but if a brand has 7 or 8 other sellers, like why would they take you? Like you have to really separate yourself, and not just, you can't just place one order and ask for exclusive like that. Like we were doing that for over a year of track record. And then we started, out of our 36 brands, we whittled it down and we got 8 exclusives. We dropped all of our other brands and our, revenue grew, even though we dropped SKUs. And it's hard to do that because it's like, I'm losing money. And, coming from the hustle mindset, it's like, well, that's money though. Like, why drop it? And it's because it's like, those guys don't want exclusive. And typically brands that are I noticed that are ran by second generation owners, they're worried a lot about preserving what their parents built. They're not trying to like kick off all their dealers and start something fresh. You have to know going into it that you can't treat them differently than you treat a brand that is the founder. Founders are ready to go. They're energetic. But second generation, they're different. So it's like there's so many little things that you have to know. Like it's really psychology and a mind game when you're talking to people, when you're building relationships. Relationship is empathy, learning what the other person wants. But like nobody does that, because when you come from the world of hustle, it's like there's nothing you've done so far in the hustle world to really learn like how to build a relationship. Like when you flip on eBay, like there's no relationship. You can just hide behind your computer and do it. Like I did it, and I thought I wanted to be a billionaire doing that, but I realized like it's not possible. Like you can't always hide. So like when do you make the switch before things don't work out? So literally all we do going forward is we just try to build relationships with brands. That's our approach. That's what we take. Relationship, exclusive, and semi-exclusive, and that's about it. So that's kind of like how we started and where we're at right now. Like we don't view things as an arbitrage play ever, because that's short term and not really something I can bank on.
That's awesome, man. Really appreciate the story. If you guys are enjoying this video so far, definitely be sure to smash that like button and also leave a comment. Super inspiring story. And I know a lot of you guys can relate to this. I'm certainly relating a lot to it. And it's just been really cool to kind of just hear like, man, like that part where you said you would just be reaching, like climbing ladders and like pulling Legos off the top. Like that was even before my time, man. I wasn't even doing it then. Like it just super crazy, man. So couple more questions because I know we're getting to that time. What are the biggest challenges people need to be on the lookout for when they make that transition over and they're getting started with wholesale? That first 90 to 180 days. What are a couple big things or mistakes that you made that maybe you can help the audience with?
Yeah. There's one thing I have to say. The biggest thing. I have a Facebook group where I teach a bunch of people how to go from transition from doing arbitrage to Wholesale, and I have a blueprint, free blueprint. Probably Steve will put it in the description or something, where it's called the
For sure.
Arbitrage Transition Blueprint. Pretty much just talks about how to do the transition, but really, what I know that will cripple a lot of people making that transition is, not knowing how much money they need to invest up front. Like, yes, sure. Any business you can start with no money. Like, if anybody asks me, like, can you start a business with no money, or how little can you get started? Like, that's really not the question. Like, if you're asking how little does it take to get started with something, you're probably not ready. With arbitrage, yeah, sure, you could start something little, but like if you're trying to start an actual business based on relationships, like the answer should be like when someone wait, when you ask how little does it take to get started? I'm gonna say it takes everything. It takes your whole life. Like, you should be willing to dedicate everything to it, or else don't do it. Like, I'm not sure why you'd want to do it. And if you're doing eBay and arbitrage and Amazon for a while, like, you'd make that jump because you know how hard it is. Like, people say the pain of, people only change when the pain of change is easier than the pain of staying the same. So some of you will be like, how little can I do to get started? And for you guys, I'd say don't get started. Like, just do what you're doing. You're probably liking what you're doing. Just keep doing it. I mean, it's fun. Like, I go into stores still, and like I just get so much PTSD and flashback. Like, I just want to climb on. I just want to scan this. Like, I want to, like, this is on sale. Like, but I have to stop myself, and then I'm like, because even though it's been so long, because it's so fun. Like, it's fun. So if you're having fun, like, do it. Just take that one advice I gave earlier about, like, don't spend your money on, like, pretend that you're poor. Like, take all your money and invest it. Like, even if you invest it in like treasury notes or CDs, like, that's better than spending it, because too many people think that they're business owners, when if you have a transactional business, your job is very similar to an athlete or a commission based person. Like, it's temporary. Just treat it that way, and put the money aside. But so really, to get started, capital wise, I would say like you should, if you're doing retail arbitrage and all that stuff, like, you should have $10,000 saved up. Like, if you don't have 10, in my group I say 4 to 6,000, but like at this point, like, I'm going to increase that and say, like, you should have $10,000 saved up, because you're going to make some bad choices early on. Like, in terms of buying, you're going to buy the wrong inventory, and that's the only way you're going to know what to buy the right inventory. Or you're going to make some mistakes, so we want to spread off a couple brands. So it's like you have to give yourself that, that margin for error, because again, wholesale is not hard. You're calling a brand, or you're talking to a brand, and you're trying to sell their stuff. Like, that's not hard. What's hard is when you run into an obstacle, and when you run into an obstacle and then you just don't know how to react to that obstacle. You're like, oh my gosh, I failed. I'm a failure. This doesn't work. Like, and then you say, you know what, I'm going to keep going. And then you fail again. And then you're like, this definitely doesn't work, but I'm going to try one more time because I saw a motivational video today. And then, and then you get hit again. But like, you're going to, like, when I got started, like, every day I felt like I was getting punched in the stomach.
Wow.
Like just because of bad buys. Like, there was one thing I bought. There was one thing. I found some suppliers. I was like, yes, this is great. I invested like $12,000 in it, which was like 90%, 80% of my budget. I was like, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to be rich. And then like a week later, all of it got tagged for hazmat, and I had to like.
Oh.
I was like, wow, the thing I put my hopes and dreams in, I was gonna like retire on this. I was like, it all went to hazmat. I mean, I'm approved for hazmat now, but at the time, this was years ago when hazmat was like not even
That's a big thing, yeah.
It was not even, you couldn't even get hazmat. So I was like, man, that took a while to get that. It took me 4 months of every day calling to have a good relationship with the brand. He approved me. We're on it, and then but there was just so many things that happened, like just cash flow issues, and just so many things that you got like getting rejected, getting hung up on, getting like, those type of things happen all the time. And it's like, you gotta have, you just have to have the fortitude to go through it. So that's why the $10,000 will protect you, give you a buffer for a lot of those those things. It could be rejection. It could be bad inventory. Bad inventory hurts the most. They say psychologically that losing money, the chemical in your brain that gets released when you lose money is similar to the same chemical when someone dies. So people don't realize the effect that it has on them. They might, like, you might talk about it casually, like, yeah, I made a bad inventory buy, whatever. But like, it's no secret why that can cripple someone's business. Like, it's no secret. Like, if someone dies and your business goes under, like, no one would blame you. So it's like, it's the same thing. But knowing up front that that's what your brain is going to do, like, just manage your brain. Like, know upfront it's going to happen. Have $10,000. Don't put it all in one place. Split that up over a couple of brands, and like, just don't go all in on something. And if you're just starting, definitely don't go all in, because you're going to think the first good opportunity, you're going to want to go all in, but you're not, honestly, you're not that smart. I'm just telling that to you because that's what I would tell myself. Like, the chances are that you found something that is so great up front, like, it's not that probable. And it might be, but like, don't go all in, because you still don't know what you don't know. Now, if you have somebody who's over here and they're able to ask you, like, hey, can you like check if this is a good thing or not, then that's good. That's different. And chances are that person will still probably tell you not to go all in, because they know that you still shouldn't. Like, there was a time I opened up a mastermind where I had some people come into a mastermind where I was doing, things like that for people. I'm not doing it right now. I'm not sure if I'm going to open it up again or what I'm going to do, but they would just say, hey, like, I just got started. Like, is this good? And I could tell you, every person who's said that to me, the first 3 to 5 of them have been horrible. I'm like, no, it's not good. It's not good. And those guys that they're watching, they know who they are. But now, now they're doing good. They know what's good. They know what's bad, and they're moving forward. But yeah, like, you definitely want to have that amount to get started, and you want to go all in. And by all in, I'm not trying to say if you have no money in the bank, or just 10,000 in your bank, the last 10,000 to your name, and you hate eBay and Amazon and arbitrage and thrifting so much. Like, I'm not going to be the one to tell you to just, neglect your wife and kids and everything to go do that. Now, if you're single, sure. If you're not, then like, you should go all in mentally, and, be really good with structuring your day. Maybe spend 4 days a week doing wholesale and 2 days doing what you love doing. Spend the beginning of the week doing wholesale because it's harder. So at the beginning of the week, you want to use your strong mental energy on wholesale, because it's new, and you could do retail arbitrage and all that stuff, in your sleep. So you save it for the end of the week, probably Saturday or Sunday, because it's like, you don't need any mental energy for that, or Friday or Saturday. Because if you have to go in between wholesale, retail, or you do both at the same time, there's a thing called context switching, where people are not aware of it. And I wasn't aware of it earlier. Where when you switch from one task to the next, like, people don't realize that there's a lag of time between one task to the next, that just the level of focus just disappears. So the more context switching you're doing in the day, you're just wasting time and focus. And people who context switch all the time, there was a graph or some survey I saw done. It's about 70% of your time is wasted context switching. So if all you did, if you have 160 hours in a week, you sleep for 40 hours, you have 120 waking hours, and you're going back and forth between tasks, like, you're wasting 100 of those hours. You're wasting 90 of those hours. Like, people think, oh, I work 90 hours a week. I work 100 hours a week. I'm productive. Hashtag Gary V. Like, they think they're doing that but they're not, because they're context switching a lot. They're going back and forth. Like, just, if you could just do one, a lot of times people do that. And this is getting real psychological, because, and these are all things I figured out about myself, is because the moment you're doing something and something gets hard, like, your brain naturally wants to stop. Like, it either wants to go to an easy task, or you want to read a blog because you think that's learning. But like, what you're doing, what was hard, that moment it got hard, is when you need to start thinking about it a little bit more. And that is the hard part. But people's brains automatically want to, like, suppress and do something a little easier. So they context switch, and then they get distracted. But distraction is not even what I'm talking about. It's just a switch. They switch to maybe, okay, let me check my sales, and then maybe look to add a new SKU, or try to, like, source somewhere, because it's what they know. But then when they come back, they lost not only the time doing another task, but the focus was, 70% of their time they just lost switching. So it's like if all you do is block off Monday to Thursday, which is or Monday to Wednesday through Wednesday to the beginning of the week, that is when your brain is at the highest level. Provided that you took a Sunday type of break, or unplug time period on Sunday. Monday through Thursday is like, or Wednesday is like when your brain is absolutely the most highest level, and that's what you should be doing. And also parts of your day, the first 5-6 hours of your day is when you definitely need to just do the hardest task, which is if you're coming to a new business, like you have to do that. You can't save that new business for the end of the day. Like you do, you save your business, those tasks for like anything retail arbitrage based or anything that you know how to do. You save it for after lunch. After lunch, you get drowsy, you focus on that. That's how you should work your day. So those little productivity stuff,
I love it.
I didn't know those things back in the day. I was just white knuckling everything. I'm like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for feelings. I don't have time for psychology. I don't have time for all this. I'm just gonna work, check my sales. And all I did was check my sales, honestly. I don't think I did that much work. But yeah, so that's kind of the advice. I don't know, most people won't give that type of advice, but that advice I think is the most important thing to get started. Is like make sure you have a buffer, and just make sure that for the newbie, you block off those types of time, those time blocks to give yourself a chance. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for you. You're going uphill.
Jonathan David, man, dropping more knowledge bombs than I could have ever imagined. I love the ending right there, going over the psychology. And I think a big takeaway from this video is, listen, if you're going to start a new business, regardless if it's wholesale or it's a pizzeria or whatever you're going to start, it takes a lot of energy. It's like a rocket ship. And most of the energy is going to come from the start, getting it off the ground. And when you're starting a wholesale business, make sure you're committed, make sure you're dedicated, make sure you're putting in the time at the right times of the day, the right times of the week, and you give it your all. Because to be successful with anything in life, don't let people tell you that wholesale or starting any type of business, eBay business, RA is easy. Nothing's easy. Nothing. It takes hard work and persistence. And like Jonathan was saying, he felt like he was getting punched in the gut every single day. And I think that's part of being an entrepreneur and being successful. So love the insights. If you guys are interested in starting wholesale, there's a bunch of free videos that I've been posting on my channel. Also, the course that Jonathan went through and we've been mentioning is the Wholesale Formula, which is open for a week. It's actually closing the 21st. And it used to be open twice a year. It's actually only open up one time this year for 1 week from the 15th to the 21st. So if you're interested in that, I'll put a link down below if you want to check it out. And I have a special little bonus as well. But Jonathan, I appreciate you. Also going to put Jonathan's guide as well, his transition guide from RA to wholesale, sharing his journey. I think it's like over 20 pages, really insightful. So definitely check that out as well. But Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on, man. This was so much fun. And believe it or not, man, it's crazy. Like I could guarantee you your words are probably going to change like a lot of people's lives. So thanks for coming on, and thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoyed this, like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Jonathan, appreciate you, brother.
All right. Thanks, Steve.